Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Let's go ahead and get started here. First thing, I wanted to quickly go over everything that you have due, which will be due on this upcoming Sunday here. So on the 26th. All right, first thing here, make sure you get your final copy in for your biotech paper. So that's going to be due here. Remember, you should primarily have this with 3 different sections. So a summary of what you researched, the pluses and negatives of the technology, and then the future implications of it. For your discussion question for the week, remember to pick one of these here, and you either want to talk about how posture affects sports performance, compare 2 back and spine injuries that will be common in collegiate athletes, and how do both seated and standing posture affect our overall health. So pretty straightforward. I've had a couple of you start turning these in, so good to see that. Make sure that, again, you are making an original post and then responding to one other student. That's where I see the most points lost, or when people do not respond to other students. For your assignment for the week here, you have 4 questions here. So compare sit-ups with the knees bent versus the knees straight, sit in a chair with proper posture in a slouched position, and explain what's occurring at the spine. Pick 3 abdominal exercises. Tell me what the muscles are that are being used, how these exercises could potentially be harmful, and then describe 3 things you would tell someone to do to improve their posture. So pretty straightforward there. And last thing with your lab here. So we'll be going over all of these movements on Wednesday. Today, I wanted to get into primarily the posture analysis here, but we'll be going over that for you. All right. So we've been going over the anatomy of the spine and all the nice movements and all that good stuff. So today I want to get into our postural analysis here. When we're doing any sort of posture analysis, the easiest way to think of this is that if it looks wrong or it looks off, it probably is. Posture is something that is somewhat subjective, but at the same time, when you want to do an actual complete measurement of someone's posture and give it an objective grade, you can do that. The only thing is that posture typically, especially like perfect posture, isn't something you typically see when you are kind of in the real world here. For the most part, posture, like perfect posture, only exists when you actively try to do it. Now, some people do have just really good posture naturally, but for the most part, if you are doing any work substantially where you're sitting at like a desk, you're going to have a very difficult time with getting perfect posture. When you do any sort of postural analysis, you want to do it from a 4-point perspective. So you want to have an anterior, a posterior view, and both lateral views to make sure that you're able to appreciate everything that you would be looking for with someone's posture. Now, a plumb line is just an imaginary line that will run from head to toe. And it's theoretically a straight line that is going to connect all of the major joints of your body together. So a plumb line should go straight from your ear, through your shoulder, through your hip, your knee, and then to your ankle, all in a straight line. For the most part, if you watch anybody like standing up with their posture, and like you can see with me here, and I'm trying to do this so that I can kind of get a little bit of a side view of myself, but you can see, and granted it's not the best depiction here, that my shoulders are roughly here and my head is over here. I'm just trying to get it so I'm straightened out a little bit more. Perfect, there we go. All right, so here is my ear. And then my shoulder would be roughly right there. Perfect. Okay, so there's the lines for me when I am looking at myself. So ear, shoulder. And you see that I'm off by this much. And that's relative to this screen, because my distance from my ear to my shoulder is a little bit bigger than the, I think this looks like all of an inch on the screen, maybe. But it gives you an idea. So this here should be in alignment with this here. And this is the most common thing you'll see with posture anomalies, is that the ear is forward, or you're more leaning flexed, as opposed to staying over top of the shoulder. So if I were to have like perfect correct posture, I would need to really get my neck to retract back. And if I do this, I feel a nice good stretch there, but this really isn't a position that you're going to be sitting in, you know, on a day-to-day basis. Very, very difficult to do this. When I was doing my best with posture, it was back when I was an undergrad. I was doing an internship at the Cleveland Clinic in one of their it was their sports rehab facility, and there was one of the PTs there was like nicknamed the posture police. So she would actually come up to anyone like sitting and like correct your posture. So I was actually doing really well for a while there, where you want to make sure you get your butt clear in the back of the seat, your back straight against it, but you want your neck to be backward as well. So the major problem you see with people is that if they lean back, they'll look forward, and you can't really do that. So if your chair leans back, you can't look forward. You would have to be almost looking upright. So that's one of the most difficult things with posture there. Now, other things you're going to see. When you look at an anterior or posterior view, you will primarily see frontal plane anomalies, meaning you're going to see tilting. For the most part, the neck itself should be relatively straight. You usually don't see a whole lot of movement side to side at the neck as a static position. Now, what you may see, most likely see a lot more, is problems at the shoulders or asymmetrical movements at the shoulders and the hips. These are the two areas you're going to see the most frontal plane anomalies. Meaning, if I'm standing up and you're looking at me from a frontal view or even a posterior view, it doesn't matter. Most likely what you would see, if you're going to see something, is you're going to see some sort of a hip imbalance, like either a hip hike, or you could potentially see the shoulders moving. So one shoulder be higher than the other. Very common if you have an injured shoulder to have one shoulder hike up a little bit higher than the other. So if you look at me straight here, so if I look straight at you, my shoulders stay, I'm trying to get back in there. I'm not in line with the camera now. All right, so you can even kind of see with mine that my shoulders aren't quite perfectly symmetrical there. So like if I lean forward, you can really kind of see it. But you can clearly see how my left side is farther down and my right side is higher up. Now, granted, I did have surgery on my rotator, my right rotator cuff, about, gosh, it's been like 10 years ago now. But anyway, you can still see there's that anomaly there. It's a little bit unperfect or imperfect. It's hard to see a view of my clavicles, but my clavicles actually are offset as well. So I have them where they both reach a point right here, except on the outsides, my left one goes a lot higher. I'm sorry, my right one goes a lot higher than my left one here. So these are actually pretty well offset. So those are the kind of things you would see for anomalies with the anterior posterior view. You may occasionally see some malformations with the knees and ankles. Most likely, if you're seeing any malformations with the lower body, it's going to be where the ankles are pronated or supinated, so where they shift. So you have it like the Achilles tendon looks like this, or it looks like this. Usually you don't see a whole lot of major problems with the knees just on static positioning. The knees will show themselves to you, will show anything wrong with you when you start moving them. So especially if you're doing, like, say, a squat, that's really where you're going to see problems with the knees. Now, if you look at me from the side again, so side, you are going to see sagittal plane malformations, meaning flexion extension. The big one is the head and neck. Primarily, the neck will be protracted forward. So you'll be into a slight neck flexion here. Very rarely do you ever see, like, say, a neck extension. That's very rare. But this is also where you would see your posture, your spine malformations, such as if I had lordosis or if I had kyphosis. You really couldn't see scoliosis unless you're looking posteriorly at someone and they had a very visual or noticeable one. But again, your primary thing you're going to be looking for is, does the ear line up with the shoulder, to the hip, to the knee, to the foot and ankle? Virtually everyone's ankle and knee should line up, and you should all virtually have your ankle line up with your hip. Your posture really gets poor from the waist up. And that's because whenever you start getting into a position where you are bending or moving the spine a lot, you can get that so that it almost permanently moves that way. For the last 5 years prior to coming to Park, I had a job as a health coach where I would sit virtually all day, kind of like this. And over 5 years at 40 hours a week, I've actually ended up having a deviation in my lumbar spine of about 4 or so degrees. I actually think I have a picture I can pull up right quick. Let's see if this shows up. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Here it is. So this is actually me. So ignore this. This is for a different thing I did. But you can see very clearly how my lumbar spine is deviating there. So that's about a 4-degree change. So just from sitting off-centered, I had that big of a change to my spine. So, you know, pretty considerable there. Now, these couple of links will help show you some different core stability things. Remember, you also have the, what's the name of it? Oh, the muscles in motion guide for you there as well. So make sure you look at that if you need to. So to kind of finish up with this, so trying to make this as quick as I can. Postural analysis is a static position, meaning that you are only looking at your posture from the position that you stay in. You don't move with your posture. Now, there are dynamic posture assessments or dynamic postural analyses, but we're not going to be looking at that so much. So for our purposes here, a posture analysis is something where you're looking at a static positioning, so a still image of someone. You want, ideally, everything to be parallel from one side of the body to the other. So one shoulder should be in alignment with the other. One eye should be in alignment with the other. One side of your pelvis to the other, knee to the other, ankle to the other. You also want your major joints down the side of your body to all line up. So ear to shoulder to hip to knee to ankle, you want those all to line up together. Now, when you are doing the spine lab here, what you'll need to turn in is you'll need to turn in the movement analysis part. And then for the range of motion manual muscle test, you don't need any of the actual measurements. So I'll delete all those for you here. But what you'll need to do is for the manual muscle tests, you're going to need to say what movement or what muscles produce the movement, how you would position the partner, and where you would position yourself. So there's only 5 of them. And all of these are really your core muscles. And then for the range of motion, same kind of thing here. Except there's a few extras. So you're going to have 4 range of motions with the goniometer, 3 with the tape measure. Usually I would show you these with the double inclinometer, but we don't have those. And since we're from a distance, that's not really going to be something you need anyway. But for the goniometer, you would need to say where you would place that and what muscles cause the actual movement. And then same thing with the tape measure, where you place that and the muscles causing the action. So you notice here that you only have cervical goniometer readings. You only have thoracolumbar tape measure readings. So you're only going to have to measure the back with a tape measure. And again, I'll show you all this on Wednesday. And you're only going to measure the neck with the goniometer. Again, muscle test. Okay, so with your posture assessment, you can do this in one of 2 ways. You can either do an assessment on someone in your house, a friend, whomever, or you can do a posture assessment on yourself. So like essentially take a picture of yourself from all sides and then analyze that for this. What you need to write down here. You only need to write down where you have something that goes wrong, okay? So if your, say, I don't know, clavicles are even and there's no anomaly there, you don't need to write that they're perfect. You don't have to do anything like that. The only thing you have to write is if something is off, okay? So for example, your external acoustic meatus, that's your ear hole. So if you look right there where the ear hole is, that is your external acoustic meatus. If that were not in alignment with the other one, so if your head were like kind of tilted, or if this were like protruding forward, you would note that. If it lines up perfect, if everything's even, don't have to do anything. Now, seeing as though I have seen all of you in class before, I know that all of you have at least one or more postural anomalies yourself. So if you're going to use yourself as your example, you better make sure you write something down, because I know for a fact all of you do not have perfect posture. And truthfully, unless you are really interviewing, if you're, say, analyzing a model, maybe, like a runway model, you might be able to get someone with perfect posture, but for the most part, you're not. So you should have something written here. You won't have something for everything, but you're going to need to have something written here describing what the anomalies are with that. So there's your rundown of posture here and kind of the different things that can go wrong with it. When we come back on Wednesday, we're going to go over the testing for all this, and then we will move on from there. So that's everything new I had for you there. So thank you for getting through that with me. I really do appreciate everyone that was understanding about me having to move class today. My dog is very thankful, and well, there she is over there having a nice sleep. So that's Sasha. She's a basset hound. But again, that's everything new I have for you there, and I will see you all on Wednesday.